Hi, I'm Julie. I'm a speech pathologist, and I've been spending the last decade or so working on supporting children in their transitions to school.
And hi, everyone. I'm Kate Ford. I work for Reframing Disability. Also an educator and a parent of children with disability. Now, thanks for joining us today, Julie. We wanted to get some insights, Julie, as to what parents can do to prepare their children to return to school.
That's a big one, Kate. So, this lockdown has been a really tricky time for families. Depending on where you are in New South Wales or Victoria, you could have been locked down for as little as a month. You might have had stay-at-home orders for up to 3 months. By the time school resumes, that might even be 4 months. So during this time, many families, out of necessity, have had to change their routines. Families might have, mums might have been wanting kids to sleep in so they could get, a few hours of their paid work done, early in the morning. Families may have, maybe getting into the habit of staying up later into the evening. Children might be having cooked lunches. But lots of family routines may have changed over this time. And one thing that has almost definitely changed for all families is children have had a lot more time on screens. Um, no doubt all families have continued with some semblance of a routine. All the kids are fed, they're all sleeping at some point in the day. They're all having, they're all changing their clothes. They're all having showers. But these are probably happening at different times of day and maybe with a less structured routine than we might have had pre the stay-at-home orders. So in terms of getting back to school and getting back to our life where, we're all doing the same thing as a community at the same time each day, we need to really start thinking about how we transition children's sleep patterns, eating patterns, um, and recreation time patterns back to those that we had before. Which things we actually think are better now and we want to maintain into our new routine, but we need to do this really consciously. Um, Many families have established a great new routine around family exercise, and most of us are, going to want to continue that. So working out where in our day that can continue to happen. We're not going to be able to take the kids out for a stroll at 10 a.m. when they're back at school. That might have to be, an after school activity or an early evening activity. Uh, However, kids are going to need to be at school, for 9 a.m. in most cases. So, those sleep-ins really aren't going to work in terms of the return to school routine. We're going to need to start gradually making children's bedtimes earlier to enable them to be up in time for school. Many families, bedtime might have slipped back from 7 to 8 to 9, maybe even to 10 in some households over this stay-at-home time. So getting those bedtimes back to what they were before, but you'll only be able to move that by, say, half an hour to an hour a week. So it's time to start doing that now. So bedtime, that's really important. Eating, if your family have started doing cooked lunches every day, we might need to have a few practices of lunchbox at the park in our lead up to school, getting back to school, because children find it hard to transition sometimes from a hot lunch to a cold lunch. And in most New South Wales and Victorian classrooms, children are taking a lunchbox with a sandwich or some other, cold pre-prepared food in it. So a little bit of practice could be really helpful around that. We've also got, children who have been learning for many hours a day on the screen. Some schools might have even done, 4 hours of video conferencing or 5 hours of video conferencing across their day. Your child, on top of that, while you were busy trying to prepare a meal or do some work, they might have had another 2 or 3 hours of iPad time across their day. Let's try and scale this back. Children need their screen time for learning, but that recreational screen time, it's just so important. We don't allow that to be a time of isolation and segregation. How about we stream that iPad onto the TV? That way there can be a shared conversation about that YouTube clip your child's enjoying watching. Talking about what time of day, iPad is allowed. Maybe if like iPad is only allowed, outside of what traditional school hours would be, maybe it's, a half hour slot of you can use your iPad on your own for half an hour when you get home from school to unwind. But after that, all screen time is shared screen time because we want to keep our children at the center of family life. Many children have had a more inclusive role in family life since lockdown has happened, and that's one of the great positives to come out. So that might be a new family tradition we want to encourage, is keeping our kids within family life and not letting them go and disappear to their room on an iPad. So once we think about our routines for eating, sleeping, exercising, and screen time, and how that's going to fit in with a school schedule, and of course mum and dad's new work schedules, which might involve going to the office some days and staying at home some days, or working slightly altered hours, we're going to need to set up a family visual schedule, because this is a whole lot of new routines and new information, and we're all going to need to stay on track. Visual schedules help mum and dad just as much as they help the children. So, once how it's going to work as a parent, or hopefully parents together, you can come to an agreed schedule of how things are going to run and then represent that visually for the kids as well. Once all of that's happened, there's things that you'll be starting to put in place and the kids will experience, which is great. I mean, there's no better way to prepare children than practicing and rehearsing before the event, and changing some of our scheduling up front, and our family routines up front, having that represented on a visual schedule. Children will learn and know what to expect. For those parts of the new routine that children aren't yet able to practice and experience, we might want to set up some social stories about how things might look when that day of return to school does eventually occur. Over the next couple of weeks, there will be some social story templates that you should be able to access from the Reframing Disability website. So in addition to sorting out the routine, there's something else I think some of us might have forgotten.
We need to get organised as parents, don't we, Julie?
Oh yeah, as the parents, we are still responsible once the kids go back to school for making sure their clothes fit, and making sure their lunch boxes are full. And our kids have grown. For some children, they're going to be going back to school late October or early November in summer uniforms that they won't have worn since the end of March. 6 months is a long time in the life of a child. Some kids' feet could have grown 2 or 3 sizes by then. So, make sure you take this opportunity before the return to school to have a quick check and try on of those school clothes. Order ahead. Postage delays, depending on how you're going to get your items, you might need to order now. Some deliveries can take up to a month. So we need to order ahead. We need to, try and work it out, so that our children have the things they need. If your child's someone that needs to practice something over and over, and when there's a break might forget how to do it, you'll know if your child's one of those children. They're the child that can put their jumper on by the end of winter, but come the beginning of next winter, they've forgotten how to get that jumper, that body into that jumper. You might want to start practicing with things like lunch boxes, school bags, drink bottles now. Those lunchbox days at the park, provide those opportunities to practice. Pull out that school bag and just check there wasn't a banana left in there at the beginning of lockdown. You might need to pop it through the washing machine. Getting yourself ready so you don't have any unexpected surprises during this time of change, which will be the return to school.
Absolutely,
in some
Julie.
families, the changes are actually going to be bigger for the mums and dads than for the children.
Yeah, it's already, I feel like we're already under a pressure cooker enough as parents and navigating this return to school. So thank you. It's such a good strategy for parents to get that uniform ready, try it on, get the bag out, eye-opening stuff, because I think we as parents forget those little essentials when we have to prepare. Are there any other tips that you could share for parents today?
So I mean, there's always lots of things we can focus on, but making sure you know how it's going to run. As mum, or dad, how you're looking at this day running around return to school. Trying not to overhype it, staying calm yourself, um, and being clear and purposeful around the information that needs to be shared with children, and the information that might be better off not shared. For a whole host of reasons, but we want our kids to feel confident that they can do this when they return to school. Now, you might come up with challenges where one child's starting going back to school 2 weeks before another one. Pop that on your visual schedule as well. You know, make sure that that's clear, because if you're the child that's going back to school, or you're the child that's not going back to school who wants to go back to school, that could lead to a really tricky morning. And tears in the morning can make the day, a day that's going well, go not so well. So, the more we can be prepared and have that information, make sure we've gathered it, we've created the schedule, we've represented it visually for the children for the parts that they need to know about. We've rehearsed what we can, and we've supported the things we can't rehearse with social stories. We're probably going to do pretty well.
Oh, they're fantastic tips. Thank you so much, Julie, for sharing.
Thank you.